Money, 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 money. Money. Hello friends, everybody, I'm here in my white t-shirt that Emily made, and I would suggest that you get it, but you can't because it's sold out. Don't you? What? Doing?
What?
What is this?
What is this?
Alright, hi. I've got my laptop out. You know what that means. There are too many numbers involved in this video for me to remember them off the dome. One of the most confusing things around working in industries like the entertainment industry is pay. Money, shmoney, the dollar bill, the income, I can't think of any other ways to reference money. For those who are new here, hi, my name is Monique. I am currently a radio mic technician in professional theatre in Australia. In the last year, I have toured with 2 different shows across the country, touring 2 different cities. And I've also done a lot of other touring in different parts of the industry. It is a really bizarre, weird, uncomfortable conversation. Why? I'm not entirely sure, actually. I think that this is a conversation that should have much more transparency, and I think it would actually help people figure out what part of the industry is right for them if they knew what they were being paid when they get into it. Your income can change massively depending on whether you are local or touring, and I think knowing the differences in those costs can allow you to actually make the choice about whether touring is for you. Adding to the list of things that we were not shown in high school, at least I wasn't, that would have actually been super helpful for my adult life is award rates. When I started working in tech, I had no idea what a good rate was, what the minimum wage was, what I was entitled to in terms of allowances and breaks and all of those kind of things. It's also the kind of industry where you don't get given, you don't go into a small venue and they sit down with an employment package that is all official and government signed and whatever, and go through and make sure that it meets the minimum wage requirement and all of the things, and they don't line out all your pay bracket and blah blah blah. It's a freelancing industry where you will walk into a venue and they'll say $150 do the gig tonight, take it or leave it, and you say yes or you say no. I think it is very important to know what you are entitled to in terms of payment, for the first reason being a freelancer and setting your own wages and rates and all of those kind of things. Not accepting pay that is undeserving within reason when you can. I know that that in itself is a privilege of being able to turn down work because it's not paying enough. But also so that you can figure out what part of the industry is right for you and what kind of work is right for you. Because for some people, when you look at touring as a lifestyle, there's so many things you have to weigh up as to whether it's worth it. And the kind of money you make can be the make or break for you as to whether it's the right thing for you, depending on your life goals, the things that you need to pay for, all of that kind of stuff. So today I'm going to go through the live award with you, a certain section of it, the section about allowances and meals, so that I can give you an idea of what you are also paid during a touring lifestyle. Basically, I'm letting you know if there's any money in touring. None of this information is confidential. None of it is specific to me. The rate that you work out with your employer has to be either the minimum wage or above, and that is for you to figure out with them. That part is confidential. But what you are entitled to based on per diems and allowances, all of that is in here, and it is public information, public knowledge that is kind of hard to find. So I got it for you. Here it is. I have done a bunch of touring work in both professional theatre, obviously, and also in fringe festivals, comedy festivals. I've done the festival circuit a bit. I have toured with small cabaret artists. I have toured with small bands. I have done touring in a bunch of different ways that are following the award rate and kind of just giving you whatever they can. Or there are certain expectations of what you are going to give up in order to do the job. For example, when touring the fringe or comedy festival circuit, you are not paid to go into different states. You have to pay for your own accommodation and your own travel there, which at the time of doing those things, I had never worked in theatre before, so I didn't have particularly strong feelings about it. But now that I have worked in theatre, I do find it interesting. If a festival could staff their entire festival only with people from a certain city, fair. But if they could not do that, I think it is only fair that they would pay for the per diems that are actually entitled to workers. But if somebody wants to do these festivals and do these jobs and that is important to them and they have the means and the ability to travel city to city and that's something that they enjoy, fits with their lifestyle, whatever works for them, then it's great. But if you are somebody who would not be able to justify going to work at this event, festival, whatever, while paying the expenses of your living situation, that is also totally fair, but it is something that you should be aware of in order to help make the choice. In my time doing those different kinds of touring, I have made all kinds of differences in income. I have made the least money that I've ever made working, and I have made the most money I've ever made working in touring situations. It just depends on what you're doing, what you're needed for, the kind of person that is taking you, all of those kinds of things. Today I'm going to be specifically speaking about something that is similar to commercial theatre touring, which is all above board. It is all done properly because these production companies need to do it properly. Every single job in the entertainment industry falls under an award rate. The award rate that my job and a lot of other jobs within the industry fall under is the Live Performance Award. This award states the minimum wages, meal allowances, accommodation allowances, laundry allowances, break times, compensation for breaks, all of the things to do with money are within this live award, including the skill set and what is expected of you to be at a certain level of a certain amount of pay. If there is no award or agreement for the job that you do, there is still a national minimum wage, and this is all obviously applying to work within Australia. I have no idea what it's like in other countries. Apologies if this does not apply or is not very helpful for you. The national minimum wage for a casual job was $26.73 an hour, and the national minimum wage for a full-time or part-time job, so you get allowances like sick leave, annual leave, stuff like that, is $21.38 an hour. In a theatre show in Australia, you will typically work 5 to 6 days a week. More often than not 6, but sometimes you get lucky and you get 5. The award rate is broken up into two different categories based on allowances. It is work weeks that include 1 to 4 days of work and then 5 upwards, and that is a difference in allowances. Allowances are such a common thing, per diems they are called, are such a common thing within, I think, worlds like theatre because it is expected that they tour. There is no way, like I said before about festivals being able to employ from the city that they're in entirely, there is no way, or it would be very difficult and it would be very limiting for the shows to only employ people from one city. Perfect example is that recently in Sydney we've just had Tina, obviously, is in the city. We just had Beauty and the Beast, Mamma Mia, Wicked was in Tekken rehearsals, Miss Saigon was in Tekken rehearsals, and Sweeney Todd was about to come through the Opera House. That is 6 different major shows that are going on in the city. That is not the amount of crew that there is currently. We are actually in a crew shortage at the moment, but even in a normal time, I don't think it would be possible to crew shows entirely from one city and cast them entirely from one city. So it is not unexpected that you would be getting people from other places who require a per diem, who require accommodation, who require those kinds of things. In my experience, you will have a local city, the place that you are from, the place that when you are there, you do not need extra allowances like meal allowances and living allowances, or you don't need to be offered a place to live. Everyone will have a local city, and when you are not in that local city, you are entitled to per diems. Fortunately, all of the shows that I have worked on have provided accommodation for you, and you have a choice between taking the accommodation or finding your own and taking the allowance instead. But everybody will get a meals and incidentals allowance, and those who require the living allowance will take the living allowance also. These allowances are not taxable. On top of your normal paycheck, which will be taxed, you will then receive these allowances completely in their entirety. But let's have a look at what some of those allowances actually are. Within the award, they have a list of every kind of job within live performance. There are all different levels of dancers, singers, opera singers, striptease performers, crew of sound and lighting, like all of the different jobs are within this live award. The levels are scaled based on the skills required to do the job and what will be expected of you while performing it. For sound and lighting crew in that section, it goes from levels 1 to 8 and then a technical manager. For the sake of the video, I'm going to be using level 4 as an example. I have it written down. Please don't think I'm rude for not looking at you. For a level 4 part or full-time employee, your minimum weekly wage is $1,169.13 or $30.76 with an overtime rate of $38.45. That is also the rate for a casual who cannot be given a weekly rate. It is hourly. If you are touring, on top of that, you will also receive a living allowance. If they do not provide accommodation for you and you have to find it entirely on your own, you will be reimbursed, as far as I understand, £1,000, and that is scaled based on which city you're in, I think because of the different living costs in every city. But to use Sydney and Melbourne as an example, you can be reimbursed up to $1,791 a week for where you're living or staying. If you accept the supplied accommodation, you do not get a living allowance. If you work a 1 to 4 day work week, you will be given $234.50 a night for your accommodation. And if you work 5+ days a week, it will either be $178.90 per night or a maximum of $894.63. That is if they provide accommodation but you don't take it. This is what I mean about knowing what your per diems will be can allow you to decide whether touring is financially justified for you. In my personal case, I really try to take and find my own accommodation instead of taking the provided accommodation, because I am never gonna spend almost $900 a week on accommodation for just myself. So that is money that I can then figure out how to spend in other ways in my life, because it is still entitled to me. It is still a per diem and allowance that I am owed legally, but I'm not gonna spend all of that on my rent every week. So it allows you to then save a lot more money. Everyone will be given incidentals as well while touring. This is like a just in case fund, which I love that they have this because it is so necessary. Incidentals, either $22.19 a day at a maximum of $110.93 a week. For meals, if you work the 1 to 4 work week, you will be given $32.96 per meal that you work on a work day, that you eat on a work day. And if you are working the 5+ day work week, you'll be given $66.86 per day and up to $334.30 a week. I personally am not spending over $300 on groceries just for myself while touring. I'm not going to add it all up for the 1 to 4 days because there are too many variables of how many days you're working, how many nights you're staying somewhere, all of those kind of things. But being given the maximum of all of those allowances for a 5+ day work week would mean that on top of your normal rate, on top of your normal wage, after tax, all of that like you would normally get if you were working locally at home, you will also receive $1,339.86 every single week. For some people and the way that they live or the financial responsibilities that they have, that just means that you can actually do the job and live. If you have a family, I imagine that much money does not go very far and you have to tour with them. But if you are a solo person only responsible for yourself and you are wanting to save a lot of money, pay off your HEX debt, go on a holiday soon, like if you are somebody who has financial goals in mind, touring could be a great option for you in terms of savings. Or if you're somebody who needs to be at home, who does not want to travel around, then you would then be able to look at the rate that you are getting without those per diems and decide whether it's justified to work in those spaces for your lifestyle or for your responsibilities. There are times and places where it is more worth it than others. For example, if you go to a city where you're only there for 2 months, it might not actually be possible for you to find short-term accommodation within the budget of what you want to spend, and it's so much easier for you to just take the company accommodation. But in order to be able to make that decision, you need to know the numbers. Another great thing about this award rate, I think, is that it helps you to set your rate as a freelancer. Knowing what the government minimum wage is for these particular jobs allows you to, without having to put a number on your belief of your own skill, which can be really hard at first when you are fresh in the industry, is really helpful to set that rate. It also is really helpful then to consider, am I going to be needing a meal while I am on this shift? Am I traveling away from home? Do I have to wear a uniform? Therefore, should I be including a laundry allowance, which is in the thing? Should I be considering all of those things in my rate also? This was a part of the job that I found really confusing, and when I started receiving contracts of jobs like this, I found it really overwhelming. I didn't really understand the income of it. Like, just reading a dollar value on a page was not enough for me to think about how it would actually, or feel like I understood how that would actually transfer to that income being in my life. I had never lived in different cities, so I didn't know what the cost of living in those cities were. There was just so many things that I didn't know and didn't understand, and it felt like it wasn't appropriate to ask those questions to other people because they didn't want to talk about what kind of money they were making, how they spend their money, which is totally fair, but it would have been very helpful for me if somebody had just been transparent with me about allowances, per diems, tips and tricks on how they made the most out of their savings, if that was a goal that they were trying to accomplish during their work. And so it's a conversation that I am open to having with you guys. Later on tonight we'll be streaming where I'm happy to answer some more questions about this. Again, I do not know everything about this subject, and I, as I said, also found it very confusing. So there is every chance that somebody knows more or better than I do. If you are one of those people, one of those many, many people, please leave your opinions, tips, tricks, comments, experiences down below, or head on over to the Discord tonight and you can join us while we chat about it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next week.